There's something stirring in the atmosphere, a battle many do not see, but they feel. A strange heaviness, an unexplainable frustration, a sense of delay. Child of God, you are not crazy. This is spiritual warfare. There are moments when the enemy doesn't come in a red suit with horns, but rather with subtle signs. Signs that warn your spirit before they ever touch your life. Today I want to uncover something deeply spiritual, often overlooked, and yet biblically undeniable. I'm talking about the stench, the spiritual smells that indicate the presence of witchcraft. Yes, you heard right. Just like in the natural, where your nose tells you when something is rotten, in the spirit realm, there are smells, signals, warnings that something foul is lurking close. And if you're spiritually sensitive, you've likely already encountered this. Today's message will not only awaken you, it will equip you. God has given us discernment for a reason. You will walk away from this not only free, but sharp, prepared, and on guard. Let's expose the enemy. One of the clearest warnings that witchcraft is operating near you is the sudden rotting of one's healthy relationships. It is not just disagreement, it is decay. It feels like something spoiled in the connection. Conversations that once flowed with ease now feel strained. Love that once felt secure is now filled with suspicion. You walk away from interactions feeling drained, confused, or even spiritually slimed. This is not ordinary conflict. It is spiritual interference. You begin to notice gossip seeping in from unknown places. Misunderstandings arise without cause. Friends become distant with no explanation. And when you try to fix it, the more you try, the worse it becomes. You apologize, but are met with coldness. You explain yourself, but are not heard. That's because the issue is no longer natural. It's been tainted in the unseen realm. Witchcraft, at its root, aims to divide, to isolate, and to sever God-ordained connection. The enemy understands that relationships are vehicles for purpose, and when he wants to paralyze your progress, he attacks your alignment. Contract, what started as a covenant becomes a contract laced with control. The affection begins to rot because it's no longer rooted in truth. You feel pressured, guilted, manipulated. These are signs of spiritual decay. You smell it in your spirit long before you see it with your eyes. The person might look the same, but something is off. The joy of the connection is gone. And here is where discernment is vital. Many stay in spiritually toxic relationships, confusing loyalty with bondage. But freedom requires recognizing when God is no longer breathing on a relationship. Sometimes the rot begins with a seed planted through a third party, someone whispering just enough to shift your perception. Witchcraft often uses suggestion to begin its work. Just like in Eden when the serpent asked, "Did God really say?" Those subtle questions lead to devastating separations. The enemy doesn't have to steal your blessing. He only needs to separate you from the one assigned to walk with you into it. That is the strategy. If he can corrode trust, he can collapse destiny. You may also notice an atmosphere of offense hovering around these decaying relationships. Every little thing becomes a wound. Every word becomes a weapon. That's not coincidence. That's a coordinated attack to sever unity. Where unity breaks, power leaks. And witchcraft thrives in environments void of unity. When we are divided, we are more vulnerable to deception. That's why Paul urges us to endeavor to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. When that peace is shattered, you must be alert. And this rot doesn't just affect friendships or romantic relationships. It can show up in families. The sudden stirring of old bitterness, the eruption of jealousy, the unearthing of long-buried drama. These are the symptoms of something more. You begin to notice cycles. Every time breakthrough is near, a loved one turns on you. Every time you fast, an argument erupts. That is not just life, that is war. In these moments, God invites us to press into his presence for clarity. Because what looks like betrayal might be the unmasking of hidden witchcraft. What smells like loss might actually be divine protection. When God allows a relationship to rot, sometimes it's to reveal what was decaying underneath all along. The spiritual smell is a signal. Pay attention, pray, anoint your space, and guard your heart. It's not about cutting people off impulsively. It's about recognizing when a connection has been contaminated by unseen forces. One of the most alarming yet overlooked signs that witchcraft is nearby is when your prayer life suddenly begins to feel heavy, suffocating, or stale. You enter into prayer, but it feels like your words are hitting a ceiling. There is no flow, no breath, no sense of connection. You're not distracted by your phone or tired from the day. Something deeper is at play. It feels like the atmosphere itself has thickened, like the very air you're trying to breathe in the spirit is no longer fresh. That is the smell of something spiritual, interfering with your access to divine clarity. Witchcraft seeks to suffocate. It thrives in environments where the voice of God is muffled and prayer becomes a burden. You begin to dread the very thing that used to give you peace. Your desire to intercede fades. You might even experience confusion mid-prayer, forgetting what you were saying. This is more than exhaustion. This is warfare. One of the goals of witchcraft is to suppress the prophetic flow in your life, to sever the line of communication between you and God. Because if the enemy can mute your prayer, he can muffle your discernment. There are moments when you sense an invisible fog in your prayer room. You start, but you can't sustain. You feel resistance, but can't identify where it's coming from. You may even feel sleepy or restless as soon as you begin. That's because prayer is not just words. It's breath. It's life. It's the language of the Spirit. When witchcraft is operating, it tries to pollute the very air you use to commune with heaven. And if you don't confront it, that still atmosphere will become your new normal. You may also start feeling disconnected from the word. The scriptures, once alive and revelatory, now feel distant or cold. This spiritual dullness is a symptom of demonic interference. Witchcraft never comes with a label. It comes subtly, gradually, but always with the same mission: to dry up your spiritual senses. You will notice a lack of sensitivity to God's presence. Your spiritual appetite weakens. You may even lose the urgency to pray altogether. These are not just signs of backsliding. They are warnings of contamination. Sometimes this staleness will be accompanied by spiritual opposition, dream attacks, nightmares, or waking up with unexplained fatigue after prayer. Your rest is disrupted, your sleep becomes heavy, and you wake up more tired than when you went to bed. That's a tactic of witchcraft. It wants to wear you down so you no longer feel like contending in prayer. But the truth is, when you recognize this pattern, you must do the exact opposite of what you must press in, push through, purify the atmosphere. There are times when the very environment in your home feels dense. You walk into your prayer space and sense that something is off. That is spiritual stagnation. That is a sign to cleanse the air. Turn on worship, anoint your walls, declare the word out loud. Sometimes you're not under attack because of where you're going wrong. You're under attack because of where you're going right. The enemy recognizes the power your prayers carry and wants to render you ineffective. This stale air is also a sign to check what you've allowed into your space. What conversations have you entertained? What items or symbols are you unknowingly holding on to? Witchcraft needs legal ground to operate. When the air in your prayer life goes stale, ask the Holy Spirit to show you where the breach is. Because once that air is purified, clarity returns. Revelation begins to flow again. The fire comes back. But until then, it will feel like you're running on spiritual fumes. The smell of stale air in your prayer life is heaven's way of sounding the alarm. You are not crazy. You are discerning. Don't normalize that spiritual dryness. Don't get comfortable with breathless prayer. That suffocating atmosphere is not your portion. It is a call to war. When witchcraft lingers, prayer must roar. You cleanse the atmosphere with worship, the word, and warfare. What has gone stale must be revived. What has been polluted must be purified. The air must be made breathable again. Manipulation is one of the most cunning weapons in the arsenal of witchcraft. And often, it doesn't come dressed in darkness. It comes cloaked in care. It sounds like concern. It looks like love. But beneath the surface is a controlling spirit trying to direct your decisions, your emotions, and your destiny. The smell of manipulation masquerading as love is subtle yet suffocating. You feel it before you can describe it. It's the uneasy feeling in your stomach when someone speaks sweetly but leaves you spiritually disturbed. It's the pressure to comply masked as guidance. It's emotional influence that pretends to protect but ultimately imprisons. You'll begin to notice this smell when love starts to feel transactional. When someone gives to you but their giving is laced with expectations. When their kindness is no longer free but tied to your agreements. When disagreeing with them makes you feel guilty, disloyal, or fearful. This is manipulation in the name of love. Witchcraft doesn't always scream, it whispers. It convinces you that you owe your loyalty to a voice that isn't God's. And before long, your choices are no longer yours. They're filtered through someone else's opinion or approval. True love liberates, but manipulated love constricts. You will find yourself second guessing what God told you just to keep the peace with someone else. You start shrinking your vision to fit their comfort. You say yes with your mouth, but no with your spirit. That's when you know control is in operation. It's not obvious at first because the person might use spiritual language. They may say they're looking out for you. They may even claim they have prophetic insight. But watch the fruit. Does it bring you closer to God or more dependent on them? Witchcraft often uses emotional manipulation to seduce your obedience. And the most dangerous part, it happens in environments that appear safe. It can be a leader, a mentor, a friend, even a family member. It can be in your church, your home, or your workplace. That's why discernment is not optional, it's survival. Manipulative love will always come with invisible strings. The moment you try to cut those strings, the mood shifts. The love turns cold. The compliments become criticisms. That's because the love wasn't pure. It was possession disguised as affection. You may begin to feel spiritually drained after spending time with someone who operates this way. You're not encouraged, you're exhausted. Not built up, but broken down. Their words linger in your mind longer than the voice of God does. You catch yourself rehearsing their opinions more than God's promises. That's a red flag. That is the scent of a spirit trying to control your internal atmosphere. When witchcraft is present, It manipulates through intimidation, guilt, or subtle shaming, always making you feel like the problem when you try to break free. This spiritual smell is especially strong when your obedience to God creates tension with them.